Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking something genuinely fascinating, a comprehensive legal analysis generated entirely by large language models. The AI was tasked with evaluating an abstract case of public expression. Basically, we're looking at a scenario where a citizen's online speech and academic sharing triggers some severe judicial action. So what we're going to do today is look at exactly how the AI applies multiple layers of law to objectively evaluate the boundaries of state power versus individual rights. Okay, let's dive right into this. How exactly do we legally analyze an abstract case of public expression? You know, when complex allegations pop up involving free speech, opaque procedures, and state authority, it can be incredibly tough to untangle the actual legal mechanics from all the emotional or political noise. And that is exactly what makes our source material today so compelling. The AI breaks down these complex boundaries totally impartially, acting as a neutral lens to examine the structural risks of the case across a bunch of different legal frameworks. We've got a clear roadmap today. First, analyzing the abstract case. Then, criminal law and procedure, followed by the constitutional rights framework. From there, we'll look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, civil and political rights, and finally, economic and social rights. Section 1. Analyzing the abstract case. Let's start by establishing the core facts. Our source material derives its facts from an abstracted version of the Chen Jingyuan case. The AI was asked to analyze a very specific set of core allegations. We're talking about opaque arrest processes where evidence wasn't presented up front, restricted defense rights in closed trials, the actual classification of everyday internet speech as a criminal offense, and some pretty serious allegations of violence during the investigation phase. Throughout this explainer, we're going to impartially evaluate how the AI assesses these exact points, using various legal frameworks. No taking sides here, we're purely looking at the legal mechanics. Section 2. Criminal law and procedure. So, how does domestic law handle these allegations? Now, what's really interesting here is the massive legal tension the AI highlights right out of the gate. It points out a huge friction point, applying Article 293 of the criminal law, which is known as picking quarrels and provoking trouble, against actions that usually fall squarely under freedom of expression. The source notes that Article 293 is often utilized as a sort of catch-all public order charge, but the AI analysis argues that using this specific charge to punish, say, forwarding tweets or sharing academic opinions, well, it overexpands the law. It totally blurs the line between genuine criminal disruption and constitutionally protected speech. On top of that, the AI evaluates the procedural justice issues at play. Domestic criminal procedure requires strict adherence to the rules to actually ensure fairness, right? Well, the source material highlights several alleged procedural flaws in our abstract case. Zero evidence arrests initiated before facts are even gathered, failing to notify family within 24 hours as required by Article 85, depriving the accused of proper defense rights under Article 33, and refusing open trials under Article 125. The AI's consensus here? When procedural justice fails to this degree, it fundamentally undermines the legitimacy of any substantive judgment. Section 3. The Constitutional Rights Framework. And this brilliantly illustrates how the analysis elevates from statutory criminal law up to the supreme law of the land. It's fascinating how meticulously the AI maps the abstract allegations to specific constitutional guarantees. Look at how it assesses the risk levels here. Article 33 guarantees human rights. The AI marks the risk of violation there as high. Article 35 protects expression. Again, high risk. Article 37 on personal liberty and Article 38 on human dignity. Both face medium to high risks because of the alleged opaque arrests and procedural humiliations. And finally, Article 41, the right to criticize and supervise the state, sits at a high risk if basic internet speech is being criminalized. The AI beautifully summarizes its constitutional analysis with this principle. Liberty is the principle, restriction is the exception, rights are the root, power is the tool. Basically, the source emphasizes that constitutional law fundamentally exists to limit state power and protect individual liberty. Any restriction on a citizen's freedom absolutely must be the exception and strictly justified by necessity and proportionality. When power becomes the root and rights become the exception, the whole constitutional spirit is breached. Section 4. Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Let's expand our legal lens even further outward to international standards, starting with the absolute bedrock of international human rights. Article 1 states, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. The AI uses this really powerful preamble to establish human dignity as the ultimate non-negotiable baseline for literally any judicial action. The AI notes that a legal system cannot turn a person into a mere object of state power.
Dignity has to be respected from the very first moment of investigation straight through to the trial.
So the AI systematically connects the allegations in our abstract case directly to these core UDHR values. The opaque procedures and alleged violence, those threaten human dignity under Article 1. Criminalizing internet sharing threatens freedom of expression under Article 19. The lack of transparency challenges equality before the law under Article 7. And the restricted defense directly contradicts fair procedure and open trials under Articles 10 and 11. Impartially speaking, the AI concludes that the actions described in the abstract case present a severe friction with these universal declarations.
Section 5. Civil and Political Rights. Now let's see how this builds into binding international law, focusing specifically on the ICCPR. You see, unlike the UDHR, which is a declaration, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights actually carries specific legal weight. The AI emphasizes that under the ICCPR, any restriction on a citizen's freedom by the state has to pass a strict three-tiered test. These are often called the 3 golden rules for limiting power. First, legality, meaning there must be a clear, predictable legal basis, not just a vague catch-all. Second, legitimate aim. The restriction must truly serve public order or safety. And third, maybe most crucially, necessity and proportionality. The state's action has to be the absolute minimum necessary. The AI evaluates the abstract case and finds it highly likely to fail this 3-step test.
To get a bit more granular, the AI maps the case directly to the ICCPR articles. Article 19 is flagged for over-restricting freedom of expression. Article 9 is triggered by arbitrary and excessive detention without prior evidence. Article 14 is compromised by the lack of transparent, fair hearings. And Article 7 is violated if there's any insulting, degrading procedural treatment or violence. The AI points out that, taken together, these present a massive systemic risk of arbitrary detention and unfair trials under international law.
The AI's analysis of the ICCPR concludes with this pretty powerful thought. The state can govern society, but it cannot infringe upon fundamental freedoms. This really reinforces the concept that due process is the absolute guardian of rights. Even if the state believes it's acting in the interest of order, it simply cannot bypass the procedural safeguards designed to protect basic human dignity. Section 6. Economic and Social Rights. Finally, we transition to our last legal framework, looking specifically at the ICESCR. Under this framework, the crucial point is how the law views information itself. Article 15 of the ICESCR protects academic freedom. Now that's defined here as the right to participate in cultural life, access information, and freely engage in scientific research and creative thought. The AI highlights the severe danger of criminalizing the mere gathering and sharing of historical, cultural, or academic information. The AI draws a really sharp contrast here. It separates literal malicious rumors or false factual statements from value expressions, art, and academic thought. The source material argues that punishing academic research or the sharing of historical perspectives by labeling them as rumors is a fundamental misapplication of criminal law. Doing so violates international cultural rights, mainly because academic and artistic expressions just aren't subject to a simple true or false test by law enforcement. It's way more nuanced than that. Bringing it all together, we can summarize the final takeaways from the LLM sources. Across all the frameworks, domestic criminal law, the Constitution, and international treaties, the AI models reached a remarkable consensus. They impartially report that this abstract case demonstrates an overlapping restriction of multiple basic rights. There's a glaring structural risk of procedural justice failure, where the process itself essentially becomes a punishment. And finally, there's a clear overcriminalization of academic, cultural, and expressive rights. Which leaves us with this final, profound question to consider today. When state power expands in the name of order, how do we protect the delicate boundaries of human dignity and constitutional limits? This explainer has shown us exactly how AI can systematically apply legal frameworks to ensure we don't lose sight of those critical boundaries. Thanks so much for joining me on this structured journey through the law. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.